What is up, everyone? We have another UFC Fight Night card to break down from a DraftKings DFS perspective. This week's card being headlined by Manon Fiorot versus Aaron Blanchfield. Should be a very competitive fight, and the winner of this is more than likely going to be next for the title versus Valentina Shevchenko versus Alexa Grasso. So, yeah, looking forward to it. We got 14 fights this week, and looking through it, there's a lot of DFS studs that are fighting. So all in all, I do believe that you're going to really need some upside on this slate. It's not going to be enough to just go for the 6 winners. You're going to really need to go for that upside and not play it safe, so to speak. So let's go ahead and get right into it. We'll start off with the 9K range and work our way towards the middle. That way we can get a good comparison of how fighters line up compared to their similar price points in their salary tier. Let's start it off with Julio Arce versus Herbert Burns. There it is. Julio Arce, 4-1 favorite, 9.5K. The biggest favorite on the card, so it makes sense why he is a 9.5K fighter. Before this card, I had not seen Herbert Burns fight, so I went back and watched a couple of his fights. The guy is very, very dangerous. I was expecting to write him off because of this price tag, but he is very live to get a submission if you give him any opening. And at 6.7K, I do believe that if he wins, he's going to be optimal. I don't see how he wins, or I'll put it this way. Most of the time he wins this fight, it's going to be by a finish, and it's going to be early, and it's going to be with takedowns and or reversals. And that's going to score extremely well at 6.7K. So as an MME 150 max play, he's a fringe play. But 20 max and below, I would not touch him. And then Julio Arce, I think this line is more indicative of Herbert Burns' recent form and him being 36 and having a 2-year layoff and all that. Julio Arce is not a guy that typically runs through people and is just this powerhouse. But nonetheless, he is a 4-1 favorite. 9.5K, 14 fight card. I'm going to need minus 150 or so. And he's fine. So, yeah, I think he's an okay play. Next up, we got Colin Loughran versus Pacheco. Loughran coming in at a 3.5 to 1 favorite, 9.4K. So the money line is healthy. And for Loughran at 9.4K, he does have some takedowns, so I'm going to want minus 130 for a fighter of his style and price. He's just not there. I think he's a fade. In the context of this video, when we're trying to do all the best plays, he's a fade. Angel Pacheco plus 450, and I don't believe that Loughran will be high owned. So this fight just seems like a pass to me. Bruno Silva, Chris Weidman. Okay, so this is a fight that I believe Bruno Silva just has to be a good play. We get a 1.5 round line. Bruno Silva, about a 2.5 to 1 favorite. Pure striker. In this matchup, he should be a pure striker. Minus 130. Minus 130, I'd be fine with. Minus 190. It's very, very strong. So I think it's a good play. It's not quite elite just because he doesn't have the takedown upside to go along with it. What is he in round 1, actually? Plus 110 round 1. Yeah, he's a good play. He's a good target this week. Chris Weidman plus 450. I don't like it. I have heard the rumblings. I've heard the sharps all over Weidman. This price is way too wide, this and that. Weidman can get takedowns. I've heard all the talk. I might even get to entertain that until Saturday live stream. For now, Weidman's a fade. Ruziboev versus Dumas. Ruziboev, another guy I believe has to be a good play. He has takedown upside. Most of his wins are coming by finish. He's 9.2K. minus 110 around there. I'd be fine with. And then Dumas 7K plus 350. Minus 210 with the takedowns. That's an elite play. What is he in round one? Plus 115 round one. Ruziboev is an elite play here. And then Dumas, we said plus 350. Yeah, Dumas is a good play. I will say it feels really uncomfortable playing Dumas. I just don't see how he wins this fight. Well, that's not true. It's going to feel uncomfortable playing Dumas, but if this line stays where it is, and there's no doubt Ruziboev is just going to have to get ownership, so I'm probably going to be forced to play Dumas, but I don't love it. Bill Algeo, Kyle Nelson. Bill Algeo, I think, should definitely win this fight. He's got way higher volume in the striking. He's way more dynamic. But the problem is, we just identified 2 really strong plays. 3 if you want to count Arce, even though he's not super strong. And Algeo is not that dangerous. So let's take a look here nonetheless. Minus 230, which is fine for money line, but 9.1K, minus 110, plus 250. Just not going to cut it on a 14 fight card with these powerhouses up here that we've identified so far. Kyle Nelson, plus 500. I think this fight's just a dud. Jacob Malkoun, Andre Petroski. We got 2 wrestlers. And we could see Malkoun do what he always does, get the takedowns and just put up a monster score on DraftKings. He puts up 130s, 115s in decisions. Andre Petroski, also a very good wrestler in his own right. So if he does win this fight, I gotta believe that it's because he's able to impose his game plan of wrestling. And you add on the fact that Petroski probably has the more dangerous striking. I think that both sides of this fight look good. For the metrics, Malkoun, I don't really care about Malkoun's ITD line. His wrestling upside is so good. So Malkoun is a good play. I mean, you could even maybe call it an elite play. This guy's putting up 130s, 115s in all of his decision wins. So negligible difference between elite and good for me. And then Petroski, he is 7.2K plus 300-ish. He's a little bit outside of where I want it, but you add on his grappling upside, and that makes up for it. I think Petroski is also very viable. Okay. Next up, we have down to the 8K range, Jamal Emmers, Nate Landwehr. Jamal Emmers, typically not a dangerous guy. I know he did get a finish in the first minute of his last fight, but that's not his typical style. He has some wrestling, but he mostly uses it defensively, and he's not the most high volume guy. Minus 181, fine. ITD line, I'm going to want close to maybe plus 110. He's just nowhere near that. And then Nate Landwehr, I believe, will be the people's underdog of the week. Everyone loves this guy for good reason. He's a fun fighter, funny personality. But for DFS, I'm going to need plus 300, maybe plus 275. Okay. I think it's a fringy play. And Emmers is a fade for me. Main event, Aaron Blanchfield versus Manon Fiorot. Fiorot, I think is how you say it. Okay. Aaron Blanchfield's a great play. She's got wrestling. She's got 5 rounds to work with. She could potentially find a finish. You never know. It's 100 plus and a win. It just is. So I think Blanchfield is an elite play. Because you could see 120, 130. And then Fiorot on the other side is definitely the worst play, as far as ceiling. But then you add in the fact that Blanchfield is going to be way higher owned. At least I believe she'll be way higher owned. And Fiorot, she's high volume herself. She's got 5 rounds to work with. It's 85, 90 points, maybe even 100 across 5 rounds if she does win. I don't believe she'll finish Blanchfield. So I think both sides of this fight look very strong. From a pure best played perspective, which is what this video is, Blanchfield's by far the better play. But when we get to Saturday and we talk about ownership and all that, I believe that both sides of this fight will be equally as strong. Okay. Pizza Godinez versus Jandiroba. Pretty simple breakdown here for me. Everyone's convinced that Lupe's gonna win this fight, but the reality is, if Jandiroba wins, we know what she does. She shoots takedowns and looks to find submissions. And if she can't find submissions, she'll look to find control and get more takedowns. She's gonna score well if she wins. So I think Jandiroba is a fine play. What's her ITD line? It's not great, but I think that her win condition is very DraftKings friendly, so she's going to be an okay play. Luque, 8.7K, plus 130. Yeah, she's nowhere near it. I don't believe she'll be going for takedowns in this matchup either. Lupe's a fade for the purposes of this video. Okay. Chidi versus McKee. This is a fight that, how does this not go off? You got McKee, who is super hittable, is 0-3 in the UFC. And then Chidi, who we've seen gas out and kind of, I don't want to say quit, but fade later in fights and get finished that way. I believe that both sides of this fight are going to be good. But for Chidi, 8.6K, plus 150, I'd be fine with. Minus 110. It's pretty elite stuff. And then McKee, yeah, this fight's just an elite target. And I will say, I just got a feeling that McKee wins this. Like, he's 0-3 in the UFC. He's only plus 120. Chidi just seems like the obvious side, right? If you just look at the fights, if you watch these two guys get in the octagon on fight night, you're just going to say, oh, Chidi's probably going to win this fight. How do you not bet Chidi at minus 140? No one wants to bet an 0-3 guy who's super hittable versus a powerhouse in Chidi. So McKee's just going to win somehow. I don't know what to say. So, but nonetheless, both sides of this fight are very strong, and I'm going to be heavy on both. Gatto versus Dudakova. This fight, okay, I Gatto plus 225. It's fringy, and then Dudakova non-existent ITD line. I think this fight's a dud. Buzukja, Matthews plus 225 for Buzukja. It's like plus 250, pretty fringe. Matthews plus 300 something. I think it's a pass as well. Aslan, Turkalj, this fight's just got to go off, right? Close to a pick'em fight. It's a rematch. These guys have some weird bad blood. I watched the fight. They're jawing back and forth at each other the whole time. Both these guys are wild, and I believe that someone's going to get finished early here. Under 1.5 line, pretty juiced. This fight has to be good. Plus 200, yeah. So I think it's an elite target on both sides. Okay. Almost there. We got Luque versus Buckley. Luque plus 200 would be good to see for him. he's within that. So I think Luque is a good play. And Buckley plus 225, and then the plus 250 is kind of the edge of what I'm looking for. So I'll say he's a fine play. Okay. Let's go ahead and go over this top to bottom. Again, this is just what I believe is the best plays if ownership wasn't a thing. Although I do weave ownership into this a bit if I have an idea of what it'll be like based on the metrics, the fighters in the same tier, Anyways, this is just the best plays. Let's go through it. Julio Arce, I think he's a fine play. I think Loughran's a fade. Bruno Silva's a good play. Ruziboev is one of the best pound for pound, dollar for dollar plays on the slate when it comes to win odds, takedown upside, finish upside. Everything combined, he's one of the best plays on the slate. Good for any contest type. Algeo's a fade. Malkoun is a good play. You could call him elite. I wouldn't argue with you. Emmers is a fade. Did I skip someone? I think I skipped Silva. Silva's a good play. Emmers is a fade. Blanchfield's an elite play. Luque's a fade. Chidi's an elite play. Gatto's a fade. Buzukja's a fade. Aslan's an elite play. Luque's a good play. Buckley's fine. Turkalj elite play. Matthews fade. Dudakova fade. McKee an elite play. Jandiroba fine play. Manon good play. Landwehr fine. Petroski fine. Cal Nelson fade. Dumas good reluctantly. Weidman fade. Pacheco fade, and Herbert Burns 150 max MME play. I think is fine. So that'll do it for the best plays video. I'll go live on Saturday, and I'm sure I'll switch some of these around based on the ownerships if anything changes drastically. But yeah, that'll do it. See you guys on Saturday. Best of luck, everyone.